On Thursday the 24th of April 2025, 18-year-old Chloe Coplen-Anderson appeared at the Sheridan County District Court in Nebraska and was handed a 35 to 60-year sentence for fatally slashing her newborn son's throat moments after giving birth. Chloe earlier pleaded no contest to second-degree murder in August last year, in exchange for prosecutors downgrading the initial charge of first-degree murder. They also dropped charges of child abuse resulting in death and the use of a deadly weapon as part of the plea deal. Prosecutors said that Chloe, who was 16 years old at the time, delivered the baby boy in secret at a Gordon, Nebraska home before retrieving a knife from the kitchen on the 6th of November 2023. She hid her pregnancy from her parents, hurried back to her bedroom where she slit the newborn baby's throat. A police officer went to the home following a report that a teenager had given birth and the baby wasn't breathing. The father of the teen met the officer at the door and told him that the child was stillborn and it was too late to save him. The officer entered the home, and when he went into the bedroom he found a teen girl squatting by the door and the girl's mother holding the infant wrapped in a towel. The girl's mother was crying hysterically and kept saying she hurt him, referring to her daughter hurting the baby, and said, "You can see the marks." Court documents reveal that the officer saw the child's throat had been cut through the windpipe and there were multiple stab wounds on the left side of the chest. The officer started CPR until medics arrived and took over. The girl's parents told the officer that they saw the daughter open a drawer that normally contained a boning knife. The officer searched the drawer and noted that the knife was missing. Officers were called to the home later after the girl's father said he found the knife wrapped in a coat and hidden in a container in a closet. The teen's attorney, Todd Lancaster, said his client was abused by family members and the ruthless murder was a result of long-lasting trauma and other mental conditions she suffered. Todd also claimed that the teen was impregnated by a 19-year-old at the age of 15. Sexual intercourse between a person who's 19 and an individual who's 15 or younger is considered sexual assault in the state of Nebraska. Todd also claimed in court that no adult stepped in to help his client or stage an intervention. As it stands now, Chloe will be at least 51 when she leaves prison, as the judge agreed to give her credit for more than 500 days she already served behind bars. 73-year-old Kenneth Paulter is behind bars for fatally shooting his 75-year-old wife, Karen Paulter, because he was exhausted by caring for her. At around 2:15 p.m. on the 25th of April, authorities responded to a home in the first block of Frontier Trail in Fenton, Missouri, after an out-of-state relative called 911 to report that Kenneth had shot and killed his wife. When police arrived at the residence, Kenneth met them at the front door and led them to Karen's body on the floor of their first-floor bedroom. She had a wound to her lower back and trauma to her left armpit and upper arm. Kenneth then handed police the gun he used in the murder and admitted to shooting his wife. He told investigators that Karen suffered from mental health conditions and he'd become tired while caring for her for the past few days. He said he didn't want his wife to die in a nursing home, so he shot her instead. He also said he wanted his wife's death to be humane, so he chose a specific cartridge for the firearm and chose his shot placement to kill her as quick as possible. Kenneth then made multiple statements advising he no longer wants to live and wants to end his life so he can be with his wife. Kenneth was arrested at the scene and charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. He remains held at the Jefferson County Jail without bond. 39-year-old Shanetta Bossell is behind bars for fatally stabbing firefighter paramedic 29-year-old Graham Hoffman, who tried to help her after she was placed in an ambulance. At around 12:40 a.m. on Sunday the 27th of April, authorities responded to the intersection of Missouri 152 Highway and North Lake Trafficway in Kansas City, Missouri to check on the welfare of a person in the area. When officers arrived, they found Shanetta nearby walking on the shoulder of the highway. Police ordered an ambulance to be sent to the scene because Shanetta had a laceration to her finger that was bleeding heavily. Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department paramedics spoke to Shanetta and determined that she wasn't trying to hurt herself and did not want to go to hospital. Police officers offered to give her a ride home, but she turned down those offers. She changed her mind and agreed to go to hospital in the back of the ambulance while Graham attended to a bleeding finger. A police officer then followed the ambulance as it left the scene on the way to St. Luke's Hospital. At 1:25 a.m., the driver of the ambulance pulled over near North Platte Purchase Drive with its emergency lights activated. The ambulance driver then ran back to the back of the vehicle where a struggle was underway between Shanetta and Graham. The driver heard Graham yell for Shanetta to sit back down, then called out for help because she had a knife. As the driver opened the doors to help Graham, Shanetta stabbed Graham in the chest, piercing his heart. The officer saw what happened, called for further assistance and then entered the ambulance. Shanetta then jumped into the ambulance driver's seat and tried unsuccessfully to put it into drive. A struggle ensued between the officer and Shanetta as he tried to grab her legs. She slipped from his grip and ran to the back of the ambulance, where the officer cut her off and Shanetta got back into the driver's seat again. The officer pulled his weapon and grabbed Shanetta with his other hand, causing both of them to fall. Shanetta then bit down on his arm hard and he hit her on the back of the head with his weapon so she would stop biting. Meanwhile, the ambulance driver was trying to keep Graham alert as he was becoming non-responsive. More officers arrived at the scene and detained Shanetta. A second ambulance arrived and rushed Graham to the North Kansas City Hospital, where he later died from his injuries. Detectives recovered a knife inside the ambulance, and blood was found throughout the back of the vehicle and on nearby medical equipment. Shanetta's charged with first-degree murder, armed criminal action, third-degree assault and resisting arrest. She remains held at the Clay County Jail on a $1 million bond. Less than a week prior to the murder, Shanetta was arrested and charged for second-degree assault in another incident. In a probable cause statement filed in the Clay County Circuit Court, authorities said that Shanetta bit a Platte City officer on the 23rd of April. A Platte City officer living in Kansas City, Missouri, saw Shanetta trying to get into his personal vehicle. The officer was still in uniform and told her to stop, and she started walking toward his front door. The officer grabbed Shanetta by the arm in order to detain her. Shanetta tried to grab the knife in the officer's vest multiple times. While trying to radio for help, Shanetta bit his arm and would not let go. Prosecutors charged Shanetta with second-degree assault of a police officer and resisting arrest in that case. She then posted a $10,000 bond just 2 days later on the 25th of April. A male suspect is behind bars for fatally shooting a man during an argument over weed. At around 2:55 a.m. on the 25th of April, authorities responded to the 400 block of Lee Drive in St. Charles, Missouri, in response to a subject yelling for help in the street. Officers arrived on scene and located the subject, who led officers to a nearby residence. Inside the home, a second subject with a gunshot wound was located. The second subject, 19-year-old Bobby Jackson from St. Louis, was pronounced dead at the scene. Within 14 hours, St. Charles investigators identified, located and arrested the suspect, 19-year-old Damon John Campbell of Maryland Heights, and obtained his confession. Witnesses were also located and interviewed. The investigation revealed that the shooting stemmed from a disturbance over marijuana. Damon's charged with second-degree murder and armed criminal action. He remains held at the St. Charles County Jail without bond. 45-year-old Ylli Shtopaku is behind bars for fatally beating his former mother-in-law, 70-year-old Lita Shape, outside her apartment with a baseball bat. At 12:32 p.m. on Monday the 28th of April, authorities responded to 10 Trumbull apartment complex at 100 Oakview Drive in Trumbull, Connecticut, after receiving multiple 911 calls reporting that a man was attacking a woman outside the main office building near the entrance. When officers arrived at the complex parking lot, they found Lita lying on her back, severely beaten with head trauma, gasping for air with a baseball bat next to her. Medics arrived shortly thereafter and attempted life-saving measures, but injuries were too severe and she was pronounced dead at 12:55 p.m. During the investigation, police identified Ylli, who remained on scene, as a suspect in the murder and took him into custody. During an interview, Ylli told police that he saw his former mother-in-law and another former relative while he was at the food court at Trumbull Mall to order pizza and chicken wings for his children to have when they came back from school, and they made eye contact but no words were exchanged. After that, he followed them from the mall to the apartment building. Investigators found surveillance video that showed Ylli pull up in a white Mercedes behind an Uber that Lita arrived home in, and call out to her and the other person with her when they got out of the vehicle. Ylli then grabbed a baseball bat from his trunk as they walked away from him, and he ran past the acquaintance and repeatedly hit Lita with it for 92 seconds. He then dropped the bat and spent about 2.5 minutes milling around the area until police arrived. Ylli allegedly confessed to the murder and told detectives that he blamed his mother-in-law for his divorce, losing his house in Monroe, and the fact that he does not have any money. Court records indicate that Ylli and his wife finalized their divorce nearly 4 years ago. Ylli's charged with murder, and he's been held at the Bridgeport Correction Center on a $3 million bond. Ylli's attorney said his client told him he recently had a stroke. 29-year-old Joy Chandra Nath is behind bars for fatally stabbing his ex-girlfriend, 24-year-old Maria Garcia-Molina. At 3:54 p.m. on Saturday the 26th of April, a woman flagged down a deputy to report that a 3-year-old granddaughter had been found wandering alone in the parking lot of a residential complex near Southwest 144th Street and Southwest 134th Avenue, Miami, Florida. The child appeared to have dry blood on her face and clothing, however she was uninjured. Deputies went to the girl's home in search of her mother Maria, but she wasn't there. During a search of the area, officers found Maria's vehicle parked at Twin Lakes complex where she lived. Blood was visible on the front passenger seat, and Maria's body was found wrapped in blankets on the rear floorboard. She had suffered multiple stab wounds to her neck, torso and arms. She was declared dead at the scene. Maria's young daughter told detectives that her mother had been with a man named Joy, and that she had been hit in the head and was now sleeping. Family members informed investigators that Joy was Maria's ex-boyfriend, and that he had a history of stalking her. Maria had accused Joy of persistent stalking that she feared would escalate into violence, so she had previously obtained a temporary restraining order against him. In her petition for protection, Maria stated that in late January, Joy was seen hiding behind a trash can near her car. When she spotted him, she quickly drove away. Days later, on the 29th of January, her aunt and uncle encountered Joy again while walking their dog, who rushed toward him as he stood by a neighbour's trash can. Maria also described an incident after their breakup in November last year, when Joy showed up at her workplace with chocolates and flowers. Later she said that Joy told her, "I left something on your car," and she discovered an Apple AirTag device attached to her vehicle. On the night before Maria's death, Joy followed her to Dolphin Mall where he had an altercation with her current boyfriend. On Sunday the 27th of April, Joy returned to the crime scene in a black Lexus with the headlights off while investigators were still processing the area. Police noticed scratches and bruises on his face, neck and arms. While questioned, Joy told police he was planning on returning some of Maria's items, which were in his possession. He waived his right to an attorney and provided a recorded statement saying he spent time with the young mother and daughter for breakfast on the morning of Saturday the 26th of April, but then they went their separate ways. A search of his vehicle revealed some of Maria's possessions, including a purse, cell phone and several forms of ID. Cell phone data shows she travelled from her apartment to Joy's residence and then back to the parking lot where her body was found. Joy was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and child abuse and remains at the Turner Guilford Night Correction Centre without bond. The investigation into the matter continues. 19-year-old Maliki Skutley is behind bars following the beating death of his 6-week-old son. On the 20th of April, authorities were notified that the child had been admitted to the Randall Children's Hospital in Portland, Oregon with a severe brain injury. Following an investigation, police arrested Maliki for first-degree assault on his infant child. The boy, Paxton Schuler, died on the 23rd of April, and Maliki was indicted on 2 counts of second-degree murder, in addition to the assault charge. Clackamas County court documents show that the assault took place on the 16th of April, and that Maliki was deliberately cruel to the boy during the attack. According to the Clackamas County District Attorney's Office, Paxton was left in Maliki's care while the boy's mother was at work during the attack. Maliki and Paxton's mother were living at the Budget Inn in Gladstone, Oregon. A police investigation found that the child's death was caused by lack of oxygen to the brain as a result of blunt force trauma or extreme pressure. Maliki has been held without bail at the Clackamas County Jail. The investigation into the matter continues. A man is behind bars and is accused of sexually abusing a young girl. 38-year-old Richard White of Buell, Idaho, is charged with 1 count of rape and 1 count of lewd conduct with a child under 16. A Buell police affidavit signed on the 22nd of April reveals that the investigation began after conducting CARES interviews with the victim. During the interviews, the girl said that Richard sexually assaulted her. According to the affidavit, authorities searched an apartment in Buell, collecting evidence and DNA samples. Richard is held at the Twin Falls County Jail with his bond set at $250,000. The relationship between Richard and the victim is unknown, as the investigation into the matter continues. On Monday the 28th of April, 62-year-old Randall Duffy appeared in the Cass County Court in Fargo, North Dakota, and was sentenced to 30 years in prison for the death of a woman he was in a relationship with that she was trying to break off. Randall pleaded guilty in January to choking 59-year-old Jody Campbell to death. Jody worked at Blackbird Wood Fire in downtown Fargo. On the 8th of June last year, Police reports state that Randall called and asked him to send someone to an apartment in the 3100 block of 33rd Street South in Fargo, North Dakota. He led officers to a closet where he put Jody's body. Randall told officers that the two got into a fight over a meth pipe. He said he got mad and choked her too long. He has been jailed since his arrest.